It's been a gorgeous rainy weekend here in Leon, Nicaragua. I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua. And today I'm going to talk about the risks that people take on when they're retiring and moving to Nicaragua or to anywhere, right? Becoming expats as retirees. This is something that we've seen. This is more anecdotal, but it's some things we've seen recently with a number of people that I think are good to share, because a lot of people who are interested in becoming expats are doing so because it's connected with retirement. And there's some things that people have to think about when doing this, and some warnings we want to make sure that people have, and some important information that people need to have, because maybe there's some action you need to take early to be able to make yourself able to successfully move abroad for your retirement. So we're going to talk about that right after the bump. In a lot of my videos, I talk about how moving abroad, becoming an expat, or coming to a new expat, right, a new country, even if you've been to others, and retiring are two things that both signal major life changes. One can happen at any time. Sometimes you do it as a child, sometimes you do it as a young adult, sometimes, middle of your career, sometimes at retirement, sometimes deep into retirement, right? The other you do at the end of a career change, and many people do go on to do other types of work during their retirement, but they make some kind of change for it, whether you're just switching to working from home, or working part-time, or taking a chance to do a completely different career, or to not work anymore, maybe to travel full-time, maybe to take on a hobby that you treat a lot like a job, whatever. Both of these things are major life changes, and they're very important to consider in that context, that these things come with a lot of weight, a lot of fear, a lot of struggle, a lot of just adjustment, and those things aren't bad, right? Humans thrive from going through change. We also fear it, and we are stressed by it. So just important things to remember. It's good to push ourselves, to get outside of our comfort zones. That's how we grow. That's how we find ourselves. That's how we get to great opportunities. Very few really wonderful things in life happen by simply taking it easy and being comfortable all the time, except for the benefit of being easy and comfortable all the time, right? So there is that benefit. But in general, if we want to improve our lives, we have to push that envelope on a regular basis. And that's a very good thing, but we can overdo it. And what can happen very easily when you are retiring is that you may decide, well, okay, retirement offers these new opportunities, and that's great. That's a good thought process. And you're ready to move abroad, start a new life, do something completely different. You've been working this 9-to-5, this rat race. You've been heading into the office for decades, and suddenly you don't have to do that anymore. Well, you're faced with potential of boredom. You have an opportunity for adventure. You can lower your cost of living, increase your quality of life. Boy, a lot of things go together. This is the trigger, and it makes absolute perfect sense. So we see a huge number of the people who are looking at, questioning, getting ready for moving abroad, often to places like Nicaragua, right? We're a prime target for those who are retiring. So we see an extra strong effect of this. If you're looking at places like Germany or Switzerland, places where people often move for work, you'll see this much less. A lot of people who are expatting into those countries are looking at having their working lives established in those countries, or at least part-time. But when you're looking at countries with lower income rates and lower costs of living, typically you're going to see a lot more people moving, either that they have remote work, or they own a business, or they're able to retire. And that's what's triggering them to take advantage of moving to a lower cost place, so they get more out of life without having to work their way up a local ladder, the career ladder. So with this, in a place like Nicaragua, here in the tropics in paradise, we have a very high percentage of people who are moving here being retirees. So we see a lot of this effect where people are moving here, and some people are moving early retirement, right? We get people in their 40s, and it's still risks, right? We see people move in at a young age, relatively. And they're going through, it's just so much life change that there's a lot of risk that they're going to discover new things about yourself, or fall into bad patterns, or, it's easy. We talked about the expat disease, right? It's so easy to just buy unlimited amounts of beer, and there's nothing to stop you. You don't got to get up tomorrow, and you don't have to answer to anybody. A lot of the safety mechanisms that we've gotten accustomed to since we were, 5 years old are suddenly gone. If you think about it, from the time you're 5, or these days 4, and head off to kindergarten or whatever, preschool, maybe at 3 years old, until you're 65, 68, often you don't have any significant amount of time, maybe a Friday night here and there, a holiday weekend when you take vacation and head off to that all-inclusive resort in Mexico. Yeah, you can let loose, get wasted, and not have to worry about anything. But in a few days or a few weeks, you gotta be back in the office. You're gonna be back in that 9-to-5, whatever it is you're doing. And there's these needs of life are going to be a control that generally keep you within very strong confines. But when you retire, for many of us, it is easily 6.5 decades of constant, never-ending control on our lives that is suddenly, with no warning, removed. And when you have that opportunity that suddenly beer is cheap, sitting on a beach is easy, or whatever, right? You get the picture. It could be in the mountains. It doesn't have to be beer. But it's a really common thing. Suddenly you crack a beer on the beach and there's nothing to stop you ever from just drinking forever. So that's one. And if you retire early, that can be that much harder, right? You just get into a pattern that never goes away. So that's something to worry about. But on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of people are getting to the end of obligations and a lot of things that they've had to do, and suddenly they're like, I'm free, I can go to any place I want. There's just so much freedom, and it's so exciting. But what we have seen a number of times, right, is people who are taking advantage of that, but are the combination of some new life stage, could be retirement or something similar to it, and being in a new country is a lot to take in, often, maybe not all in like one day, but in a short period of time. There's a lot of life stages going through, and retirement isn't just not going to work anymore. In many cases, it's our bodies are getting in rougher shape, our joints aren't as good, we're not as ambulatory, we're not able to do things on our own as much, maybe able to do a lot on our own, but I might not just jump in a car and drive for 24 hours. I might not just pick up a new job and work somewhere. It's just a lot of things. I'm not going to move an air conditioner on my own. I'm not going to do my own home maintenance, right? A lot of things that I might have done when I was younger. A lot of those I wouldn't have. But a lot of things I would have done when I was younger, suddenly it seems like you don't necessarily want to do that. And suddenly, instead of going years without seeing a doctor, well, really, you should be seeing one on a regular basis. Wow, it's a lot. You move into a new country, you got to establish those patterns. You got to get to know things. And when you're 30 and you move into a new country, it's very, very easy. Your health is generally, you're able to do things for yourself. You're able to sleep on the street if you need to, right? Like, you just have a lot of flexibility that when you're retired, often you do not. You really need a comfortable bed to some degree. You really need a doctor that you can see on a regular basis. You really need to know how to get to the pharmacy and get the medications that you need and so forth. And all these things are very doable in almost any country. But when you move to a new one, you need them all established and well known at once. And if you think about life in the country that you're coming from, United States in my case, well, I know how to go see a doctor. I know how to go to the pharmacy. I know how to get my prescription fills. I know who to call, where to go, how to get an Uber, every little nuance of life is something I know how to do. And I didn't learn them in a weekend. I took decades of life to slowly build them up, and some of them changed over time. So I had to take taxis when I was little, and now I take Uber. So I learned that one piece in isolation. I didn't have to learn it at the same time that I was learning how to get to an urgent care, right? I didn't have to combine those things. When you're moving to a new country, you essentially have to take all the accoutrement of life and learn it rapidly in a very short period of time. Now, of course, there's often other expats you can talk to. You can hire a lawyer to help you. You can hire guides to help you. But it's still, you're paying people. You're depending on other people. That's stuff that's very uncomfortable. There's an awful lot that hits all at once. And again, when you're young, it's still pretty shocking, and most people are too scared to do it. The average 30-something is too scared to go through those changes in order to find out or action a better life for themselves. And that doesn't mean that for everyone moving abroad is the better life for them, but those for whom they think it would be, the average won't do it because they don't feel they can. It's too much. And so when you take that and put that on someone who's retired, who's now much more challenged generally, right? Now, some of us retire early and you're able to, do most of those things. It's like, whatever. No, I know plenty of people who've retired and it's so easy. But there's plenty, especially if you're retiring and moving alone. You have no one to fall back on. You have no one to handle part of the duties while you're like, I'll go to the pharmacy. You figure out the grocery store or whatever. Or we're learning our language together and we can practice, or we can, help each other. Like, just all those things tend to be missing. And so there's this just heaping on of stress and pressure, and the needs of things is so much more. You need to figure out a doctor faster. You got to figure out the pharmacy faster and so forth. And what I find is there's a pretty high rate at which people are thinking, well, I've always been able to move abroad before, or I've always wanted to do this, or I'm used to being able to handle things on my own really easily, and move to a new country and suddenly come to the realization of just how hard everything in life can be as you're getting older, combined with getting hit with needing to learn and deal with a lot of things all at once. And that combination is sometimes overwhelming. because part of the problem is when you're younger, right? So I was in many years ago, 15 years ago, I was in Europe, and we were moving from place to place. We were backpacking around Europe with our kids, and at times, like, we would, oh my gosh, we're about to miss a train, the schedule was wrong, or they put it on the wrong tracks, and now we got to move tracks. Well, if you're just a single person, you have, a purse or a wallet, you got just a briefcase or something, go down some stairs, cross over, come up the stairs, no big deal. You got 5 minutes, right? It's easy. But if you're in a wheelchair, that'd be super hard. Or as we had 2 strollers, we had a kid on the back, we had tons of luggage, and I had to pick up easily 150 pounds, including an entire stroller with a child in it, and run down flights of stairs and up flights of stairs to be able to get to trains in time. That was an incredible amount of physical exertion. I couldn't possibly do it today, and there's no way I could do it in 20 years when I'd be talking about retirement. Maybe a little bit less than 20 years. And but you're used to those things. Oh, when I was younger, I did this stuff. I was easy to move to a new country. And then suddenly you realize things you used to do, like just grabbing everything you own, lifting it and running from place to place, is one thing you can't do anymore. Or that whole I just found a hostel. They were full. They let me sleep on the floor. Whatever, it was uncomfortable, but I got through. I can't do that anymore. My back won't let me. Or, there's no taxis this time of night. There's no food for delivery. I'm going to go 2 days without food because it's just too hard to deal with. No big deal. I can go 2 days without food. Or I have to get my medication. I can wait a few days for my medication. Whatever. Or I don't have any medication. Right? Just all these little things. It gets so much harder, but when you move to a new country, a lot of that can hit you all at once, and suddenly things you haven't needed to do in years, figure out new things, go days without food, get medication in an emergency, suddenly goes from a once every 2 or 3 years event to a 8 to 10 things in the course of 5 days kind of event, and it's exhausting, it's scary, and there's the potential for things to go wrong. You don't have 20 people to fall back on. You might have 1 or 2 if you're lucky. You can't call lots of family, lots of friends. You don't know everyone on the street. You don't know your neighbors. You have none of those resources. And so it's just an accumulated thing. And I don't say this, I don't want to scare people from moving abroad. Of course not. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I love the idea of people going out and finding their happy place and putting in that effort to research and find the right place for them, like I did. I put in a lot of years and discovered Nicaragua was the right place for me and my family. And it's been a fantastic journey, and it's a fantastic destination. Right? I'm glad we did the journey. I'm glad we lived all over Europe. I'm glad we lived around Latin America, and I'm glad we found Nicaragua, and it's been the right place for us, and we're still really happy with that decision. And I want more people to be able to do that, and I want to empower them to do that. But I also want to make sure you're not putting yourselves in a situation where you're going to feel like you're empowered to do something that maybe you're not prepared for. And so what we find is quite often, especially when you become non-ambulatory or partially ambulatory, moving to a new country alone can be absolutely overwhelming. And I've known a number of people who have done this, and it makes me very sad that people get very excited. They move, they're very happy with the location. These are, we have people that, come in and are like, oh, this wasn't what I was looking for. It's just the wrong place. That's one thing. And that's sad when that happens, but it's part of the journey, right? We went to some countries, and we went to southern Italy and discovered that Sicily wasn't the right place for us. Italy was amazing, but was it as good as Romania or Greece or Spain? I don't think it was for us. So, that was an important discovery. It wasn't that it was bad. We love Italy, but was it our first choice? It ended up not being, but it easily could have been. And maybe a completely different part of Italy, right? There's still places that it could be just absolutely fantastic, way better than where we were. We definitely know we picked the wrong house in the wrong part of town, in the wrong town, in the wrong part of the island, right? So that's stuff that we learned, but those are things you need to learn. People go through that, other people go through that, and Nicaragua sometimes is just part of other people's journeys, not their destination. And that's fine, right? You still feel bad for it, but it's not tragic. But when someone is really, this is their place and everything makes sense and they're ready to make that move, and they come and then they find that they sometimes just can't. That's really, really hard, right? That's a very sad moment. And we don't want people to have to go through that as much as possible, as much as we can warn that off. Now, we had someone who did this a few months ago. He was here, then he left, then he came back, and he was very excited. He was on the channel for probably 1 or 2 years, very, very active, did tons of research. Tons of research came down, but he was completely unprepared for living here. He was completely unprepared for living on his own. He didn't have the financial resources to get an apartment. He imagined that somehow he was going to rent an apartment and it was going to pay him to live there without him doing anything. He had no ability to work, no ability to do finances. Of course, he also was scammed by people, which is a a risk for retirees, especially, but for anyone, especially in this day and age with the amount of scams online. He had been scammed by one of those, get a course online, teach you how to do things, and he was losing money through this scam that he was in. He was busy thinking that was going to make him rich, and he thought his apartment was going to pay him to live there, and he didn't have the financial resources to make it here, and he was not ambulatory, so he constantly was completely dependent on random strangers on the street to get him and take him places. He didn't understand how anything worked and wasn't prepared to learn it. He wanted to. It wasn't for a lack of wanting to. It was for a lack of being able to, and he gave it several months, and it was really, really dangerous for him, and eventually he decided he had to be back with family. That's one of the tough things, is that if you're moving, you want to be able to move. And this is the warning, right? For those who are potentially looking at moving alone and maybe taking on this risk, be very, very careful that you are prepared for being on your own. There's a lot of wonderful people here that will help you, but you don't have the established safety nets and social networks and structures that you're used to where you're coming from. So be very aware of that. But also, for those who are a little bit younger, who are in that position, of so many people are like, well, I'm going to wait to move and do all these things until I'm older. And this is where the big warning comes in. My family, we're older. Our kids are older. My wife and I have had our careers. Moving here, yeah, we moved here several years ago, right? So we've been here for a little while, but when it comes time for us to be in retirement ages, we will have been established here. We'll be comfortable with how to use the grocery store and the taxis and the pharmacy. All those things are going to be second nature. The language is going to be second nature. We're already in that point where we're starting to think in Spanish part of the time, and it actually gets confusing because you start losing your English and so forth, right? By the time we're retirees, we're going to be able to speak Spanish very easily. That's not going to be something we're trying to learn at that point. We're not going to be struggling with that. This is our chance to put in time. Now, we're here full time. Not everyone can do that. Totally understand. But there's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm looking at coming down, and I caution you against buying early, but coming down and starting to spend time and getting to know the place. There's a lot of people who do that. Maybe they're teachers and they come down for the summer, or maybe they have 4 weeks of vacation and they spend it here, or maybe they can work abroad part-time and they come down and do that from here. Doing that kind of thing can go a really long way to making it feel like your place. You know your way around town, you have contacts, you have long-term friends, you know the restaurants, you know the different neighborhoods, you're part of the community, even if a small part. Right. And then when it comes time to potentially retire and be here full time, it's a comfortable move. You're already used to everything. There aren't these big life changes happening in addition to the retirement. Right. And so on one side, for a lot of people, I caution you on putting off these kinds of decisions. If you think you want to be able to live abroad and move to paradise, whether it's the mountains in the snow or down here in the tropics or whatever, getting to that, the earlier you get to that, the easier and more benefits you're going to get from that throughout your life. Plus, you get to spend more time doing that fun thing rather than going around, sitting on a beach in the U.S. again or whatever. But on the other hand, if you've already, and a lot of people have done a lot of travel, like all the people I know who've gotten into the situation have done tons of travel, and it's the full move, not just going places, but the completely moving on their own at an advanced age. The combination can be really, really heavy. And imagining my own father, who's going to be 80 this coming year, his next birthday. He's quite ambulatory. He's relatively healthy. He's able to do a lot of things. He's not able to move here, or he would be here. But imagining him moving here alone is unthinkable, right? Could he do it and survive? Yes, but it would be really stressful. It'd be very, very hard for him. And he's in better health than most people his age, other than the fact that he has cancer, but doing really well. And now, if he moved down, he would have family here, and it'd be very easy because we have all the resources for everything. He would just be like, oh, I just need to stay in a house, and families here, and people will go and deal with stuff. That's easy, right? All it takes is having access to people who've already moved ahead, right? People who've already established things and will handle things for you. But most people, when you're moving alone, you don't have the family here, you don't have long-term friends here, wherever it is that you're moving to, and that's often overlooked, right? It's like the adventure. I'm going to this cool country. It's going to be awesome. But when you first get there, you know nobody. And there's so many things you have to figure out basically on your own. Even if you have resources that want to help you, right? They're not necessarily available at every moment of the day. And when you need something, like people have lives and you got to schedule around, it's very, very difficult if you don't have your own resources somewhere. And so I caution people to think very carefully about, making sure you plan and have people lined up to help you before you move. Make sure you've thought very carefully about all the things you're going to have to figure out in the first days of being in a new country. And the idea that you're going to show up and just rent an apartment and suddenly be in a place and everything's going to be really easy. Nicaragua is a generally pretty laid back, easy place, but like most countries in the region, it's going to take a while to get to know the region and to figure out the contacts and to get into an apartment and to get a contract and to get a lawyer and and even once you do that, well, now you got to go shopping for furniture. It just piles on, right? So leave yourself resources, give yourself time. And if you can, the sooner you try to move, the easier it's going to be. I don't have any magic answers, right? If you're younger and you're able to start the process earlier, I implore you to try and do so. You will be rewarded later. If you are in that position where you're thinking you're going to move abroad and you are in a health or age situation where that's going to be extremely difficult, as much as we would love to say, just come to Nicaragua, it's the best possible place, really stop and think about what's going to happen. What do you need to do to be prepared to deal with sidewalks you can't walk on, taxis that are hard to get, temperatures that are very high, right? We tell people, even people who are 20, right? If you're coming down, you got to give it 6 months of suffering in the heat, even in nicer areas like Managua, but especially out here in Lake Leon. It is hot. We've adjusted, right? It's still warm for us, but we've put in years. That first 6 months is brutal. Not everyone can go through that first 6 months to get to your body has adjusted to it period afterwards. Think about that and trying to deal with all these new things and learning these things and trying new things and figuring out how you want to be in this country and how, right? And that's a difficult thing. Everybody imagines this is how I'm going to live. And the more you've traveled, the more you probably know about that. But you're going to have these learning curves. Wow, when I got here, I thought my life would be like this, and now it's a completely different place. Everything's a surprise in a new country. New countries bring completely new cultural experiences, even if we're really well traveled. If I was to move to Germany today or Denmark or Sweden, right, as much as I know about those countries and as much as I've lived nearby, actual day-to-day life will be very different than I'm ever done in any other country. Every country is different, and I will be caught by a bunch of surprises that I can't tell you about ahead of time because they're too nuanced and people don't think about them. And some of them are very personal. They're not general to society, and it doesn't apply to everyone, but to the things that I do, right? And so that's something you just have to be ready for. And if you're in that position where that may be really challenging, really think about, do you have to have resources in country lined up that are going to be available to you all the time to help you, adjust for a month or two? Do you have people who can move with you and help you make the transition? Can you maybe talk someone else into moving with you? Do you need to have a full-time nurse or something? Like, there's a lot of considerations and everyone has different issues, and some people have no issues. But a lot of people are caught by surprise that when they move, suddenly they realize there's a lot of things that had gotten harder for them in life, and they hadn't been in a position where they had to think about it or weren't faced with that reality until they had to do many of them all at once. And suddenly walking and shopping and not having your own space and not having your own furniture and not having the things that you grew up with and not having every single thing in life be comfortable and used to and familiar. And suddenly everything is unfamiliar and you're alone. This can be a lot all at once. So really picture that. I want people to avoid moving if it's going to be a failure. If you're going to come, be sad and have to go back. I don't want people to go through that. Now, if you're going to do that, make it a vacation, right? But if you're going to make the attempt at moving, we really want people to be successful. And part of that is stopping people who are likely to not be successful from making an attempt that they're not able to do, or doing so in a way that they won't be able to do. So if there are things that can be adjusted, things that can be thought through ahead of time, that may make it a lot easier, then that is something that we want to warn you about. So I don't have easy answers here, but I do have important guardrailing warnings and advice for those who are younger, just everyone, what to consider, and don't be blindsided by this. Too many people are caught by surprise and are then in a situation that they are not prepared for. So if nothing else, get on our Thursday night live streams, ask questions in real time, get to know people long before you move. Don't just know about people. Don't just do research online. Make sure you're having conversations. Make sure you're in the WhatsApp expat groups. Make sure you really, really, really know where people are, what they do, what they recommend firsthand. Lots of people. Make contacts, bring people with you, do lots of things. We want you to be successful. We want you to be happy and safe. And we'd love to see all of you here in Nicaragua if that was possible. So see what you can do to make that happen. but try to do so in a happy, successful way. Thank you so much for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. It's like Patreon, comes directly to me. And of course, you can also watch another video, give it a thumbs up as well. Every time you do that, it helps the show. Get in those show notes and consider sending in a video of yourself or any contact information you need, all in there. And of course, get in the comments, say hello, ask questions there, and I will see all of you tomorrow.